Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is a show where we get to talk about sports, we get to talk about business, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're listening, however you're listening, you know exactly what to do. Smash that like and subscribe button over on YouTube, 5-star review on Spotify, 5-star review, and say something really nice about me and my incredible guest today. I have Dakota Crawford. He's the head of marketing at MarketPryce. He's formerly of the NHL, Indy Car, Indianapolis Star, and some other places we don't need to get into it. Dakota, how you doing today, man?
Michael, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure's all mine. I guess, are you a Cowboys fan by any chance?
Not a Cowboys fan.
Okay, cool.
Not a Cowboys fan. I grew up kind of in the shadow of the Peyton Manning-led Colts, so I grew up a Colts fan.
That makes sense.
I'm not really a diehard football fan anymore.
No.
Big basketball guy, though, so cheer for the Pacers. Yeah, that's
Halliburton. You got Halliburton. He's cool.
We have Halliburton. He's a lot
cool.
of fun to watch. But yeah, overall, not a great state of affairs for the Pacers. But yeah, I'm a big indie sports guy, and any athlete who I can help tell a great story with, I cheer for them.
Yeah, you're the guy, man. I only ask because your name is the same name as the Cowboys quarterback. That's literally the only reason why I asked that question. I really was grateful that you also are not a Cowboys fan there, but more importantly, Dakota, we're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about athlete marketing. Nice tie-in. Segue. I think that's what we call it in the biz. Talking about athlete marketing, talking about you, journalism into marketing, the interesting kind of story that you got to take to get to where you are. Why don't you tell your own story? We'll get there in a little bit. But more importantly, Dakota, the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Yeah, well, I think that the athletes who I watched growing up are a big part of that. I watched a lot of football with my family, always loved sports from a young age, and I was very involved with athletics from the age of probably 4 or 5 years old. I was playing baseball, got into wrestling, played some basketball, but when I was 7 years old, I had a staph infection that pretty randomly settled in my hip. That's just kind of how life goes. But I was sick for about a week, and then I got really sick, had to go to the hospital. Ended up being this really long affair. It was about a month in the hospital total. Had to have a surgery done on that hip. Yeah,
Sheesh.
it was very intense. There were some really bad days at the hospital where my family didn't know if I would make it because the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. That was the issue. But once they finally, deduced their way into finding this infection and how to take care of it, it was a pretty quick fix. But yeah, what that ended up doing long term is preventing me from playing sports. So from second grade on, I could not play sports. I couldn't participate in gym class. It was like that level of protection where they were trying to make sure that the hip, which is now, like if you look at an x-ray of a healthy hip bone, it kind of looks smooth, and mine kind of looks like a golf ball, like the actual socket. It's kind of just like ridged, and it's not going to last long. I'm going to have a hip replacement one day, so I'm not here for the longevity. But what did that mean as a kid? It meant that I still loved sports and I couldn't play them. So that led to the pursuit of an outlet like journalism, where I could write about sports. I always liked writing. I had a couple teachers in high school, in particular, who kind of pushed me toward writing and finding that kind of creative outlet, and that evolved into, I'm going to go study journalism. So yeah, grew up loving sports, and then I think it kind of was incubated by not being able to play, right? It's like the grass is always greener kind of thing that really drove my love for sports.
That was going to be my question. Like, did not being able to play kind of almost make you dive deeper into maybe statistics, numbers, storylines, anything like that?
It did. I think, I started like doing the internet blogger thing when I was in high school and trying to cover the Indianapolis Colts and write like AFC South trade stories. So I was always
Give us a year. What year is this, give or take?
Oh man, this would have been back in I graduated in 11, so 2011 to 12 or 13 maybe. That was before I got seriously involved at Ball State, and that's where it turned into, I'm like a reporter for the student paper covering Ball State field hockey or whatever beat I got put on to start with, and kind of working my way up there. But yeah, definitely drove my passion for the game, and I think I just, that's what life is connecting dots and finding the path that makes the most sense for you. And it's like, I was a pretty skilled writer and I loved sports, so I put those two things together. I did go out for the football team my senior year in high school. I was like, this is my last chance. I want to play before I graduate. That was a great experience because it gave me that much more appreciation for who athletes are and what they actually go through. I think it would have been sad for me to like go through life and never know what a practice felt like or what a summer 2-a-day schedule felt like. Whether that further worsened the longevity of my hip doing football for a year. I don't know. We'll learn somewhere down the road. But yeah, definitely drove my love just knowing that sports were out there and happening, and I couldn't directly be a part of them, but I wanted to find that other inroad.
Yeah, you got to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form, and right, like it's just understanding and seeing and feeling, and right. So you're in the Indianapolis area when you're growing up. So as you said, you had the Peyton Manning Colts. The Pacers were like always good, like good enough at least for a long enough period of time. One thing, like today is February. I don't know, what do we got? February 9th. It is the trade deadline day. So I've been like, the one thing about basketball, it's the storylines for me, honestly. I don't even like the sport that much. Like, I'll watch the playoffs, of course, March Madness. There's nothing like it, but I just love the storylines and just like, what is it about athletes and storylines that really grabbed you, especially in the beginning, to want to get into that journalism side of things? Because there's multiple ways you can go to work in sports, right? That's what I want to tell people on the show, and why I have so many unique guests is literally anything you want to do in sports, you could do it. Like, literally anything. Like, it's just an industry, so pick whatever you like and pursue it. You went with the journalism side of things. Was it the stories? Was it the beat? Like, what exactly was it about journalism that made you want to jump feet first, head first into this part of the industry?
You know what's funny? I'm thinking about it as you ask the question. And when I was younger, I think you watch these athletes like a Peyton Manning and you start to think of them as superhuman. Mm-hmm. And what I realized as an adult, as a professional, is like it's actually the other side of the coin where I'm trying to humanize them. And that's everything from, you know, telling stories about mothers in the WNBA. That was one of my favorite stories at the Indianapolis Star. So two moms who are raising kids in Indianapolis while playing basketball full time and what that looks like. It's a story you don't hear about a lot in men's sports leagues, right? Because they have a wife at home and the stereotypical gender roles, right? Like
3 days in baseball, if I'm not mistaken, for paternity leave. Like 3 days.
Do you really? 3 days.
I think that's it. Like you can go like watch your kid be born. You can hang out for a bit, and the expectation is you will be back on the field in 2 to 3 days.
Yeah,
complications obviously aside, but yeah, I think that's 3 days.
Yeah, much different like level of involvement, I guess, when it's two women who both play. So I think about stories like that, and I was covering, you know, part of my stint at the Indianapolis Star was covering the WNBA. So I was a de facto beat writer at times for the Fever. But yeah, it's like finding these really skilled, really talented athletes and finding the human stories that are kind of behind their curtain as a professional athlete. And, you know, now today that is like kind of taken on new life for me as I work with collegiate athletes. But it's the same way, like whether, you know, it's a super fan watching college football and they see a play go wrong and then they're on Twitter, like, you know, trashing whatever athlete. It's like I've found empathy, and I think something that, again, as a young fan, it's not always super intuitive. Like you kind of have to find this arc where you come out on the other side and you're like, wow, these are humans just like us, way better at sports, way more athletic, but they have a story to tell. They're an interesting, dynamic person. And I think that, I don't know, I was just thinking about, I think it's a cool full circle thing to like come around to that, you know, where you look up to them as a kid and now as a professional, I want to find ways to help fans more directly relate to the players they look up to.
As you said before, we look at them as superheroes, especially back in the early times before social media, before all like Amazon had a behind the scenes show on every single team, it feels like, on planet Earth, right? Because we want to see that behind the scenes. We want to be able to relate to these people. Now, in most situations, we can't, right? Again, talking about the NBA, the money is just astronomical. Like, guys that barely play are making $10 million a year. And, hey, I'm all for the players making money, so shout out. But, like, you can't relate to that person at all. So it's cool to be able to see them just be normal human beings. Like, I've had athletes on this show. Shout out Richard Jefferson. I'll bring that one up till the day I die. Like, just super cool dude. Like, just super chill. Yeah, he's an NBA champion. Big deal. I asked him some questions, and we talked about how, you know, I live in New Jersey, and, oh, yeah, he played for the Nets, so where do you go to the beach? It's like, oh, we go to Point Pleasant. How cool is that, right? So being able to really humanize, as you said, and relate to these athletes. One thing I want to stick on some of your time in journalism before we hop into some more of the athlete marketing stuff. One thing that always is interesting to me is the athletes that have the coolest stories rarely ever get to tell them, right? Like, some of them are obvious and they're the top of the, oh my God, did you hear about this guy in the Super Bowl and what he's been doing? We could talk about, you know, there's 4 or 5 guys, but you don't really hear about that stuff till the Super Bowl, and we have 2 weeks to talk about it. So you got to talk about something else. I've interviewed over 150 Olympic athletes. Some of the most amazing stories I've ever heard that outside of the, I don't know, 150 people that listened to the episode at the time, like, no one's ever going to hear it, and it's such a drag. Like your time specifically, like working with the WNBA teams and some of the other smaller sport teams, as you said, the indie sport teams that you pay attention to. How frustrating is it from that standpoint that these stories are so incredible and so amazing? It's just they're not in the right sport, or they're not. If they are in the right sport, they're not at the right position, that they can't get the shine that they deserve.
Yeah, I think in media especially, there's only so much bandwidth. So you have one beat writer. Maybe in a bigger market, you have 3 or 4 outlets that are covering a specific team. But at the end of the day, they don't have time to tell the stories of every athlete. What's cool now, and you said this earlier, like in addition to the the behind the scenes shows that have become commonplace for like 3 or 4 teams a year, it seems like every athlete has their own storytelling mechanisms, whether it's social media or they have their own production company or something in between. So I think that has changed a lot as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think bandwidth is part of why you don't hear all those stories. And what I realized is even this week we were talking about an athlete at Arizona. So we'll touch on this later with the MarketPryce work, but a young woman who we're trying to find a couple opportunities for. And she's a soccer player who lives in Tucson. So the first things you think of are like, cool, maybe we go find a sunglasses brand or sunscreen or something, right? Like she's in the desert. But I spent like 10 minutes looking at her bio, reading about her. And she grew up and she was like a ski champion who went to a high school in Vail, right? So she grew up in Colorado, and it's something that a quick look at her Instagram feed, you wouldn't know. And I'm talking very surface level about like brand partnerships that make sense. But even at that level, it's like you just peel a couple layers back and you realize this athlete has more opportunity than we even knew. And it's the same thing, I think, as a reporter. There were so many stories. Like I would talk to the center for Ball State basketball when I was there. Was a great dude. His name was Trey Moses. He was like really active in the Best Buddies program. So he worked with children who had Down syndrome, and like they all looked up to this dude, and you would see pictures of him interacting with these kids, and he just always looked incredibly happy. He was always giving back. And it takes a certain kind of person to do that, and you think, oh, they have a different level of energy and ability to give back and empathy and all these things. But I started getting to know him, and he's like, I don't even remember how we got to the story, but he was really struggling with mental health issues. And it's just not someone who, again, at the surface level, based on what he posts on social, that's not a story you would recognize. But I start interviewing him for the story. One thing leads to another. And he's like, yeah, I would come to our arena at night, and I would just be here sitting in the arena in the dark alone, just thinking. And you realize, like, this is an athlete who's going through a lot. And then what he ended up doing is using his platform to try to support other athletes who were going through the same thing. So yeah, I don't know. That was always the most fulfilling part of being a sports reporter, because for me, honestly, at times it could feel a little bit shallow. Like you show up, you cover a game, you go home, and it becomes rinse and repeat. But when you could really connect with an athlete and help tell a story that had some impact in a specific community, that was really the special part. And you're right, like every athlete, if you start peeling back the layers, is going to have a story to tell, but there's just not enough time, I think, to do that for all of them. So even as a reporter, it can be frustrating.
It's a lot easier now, though, as you said, right? Because every athlete has the ability to tell their own story. Maybe they're not great at it. Maybe they need a little bit of help, Dakota. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. But no, I think it's really important for people to understand, like, these athletes, so many of them have just the coolest story. And I personally believe, like, a big fan of the Olympics, right? Big fan of Olympic athletes, work with them for multiple years, many of them for multiple years. And again, literally some of the coolest and craziest, most insane stories I've ever heard have come from their mouths. And I'm so grateful that I can remember at least half of them, right? Because they just had such cool stories. And, obviously you've been talking about athlete storytelling this, for the last, let's call it 15-ish minutes here. And it's very clear in understanding why and how and what made you want to move to this side and be able to help at least where you've landed with MarketPryce. But I'm kind of curious about the way to get there, right? So you're in journalism for a couple years. You move on to Indy Car, the NHL. You're at both of these places for a little bit. You start to get in the social media side, the athlete storytelling side, helping athletes with their brands. How easy of a transition was that to start working with some of these other sports and these other athletes, going from, hey, I'm beat writer telling this story of the game, or giving you the statistics and what's going on, to now being able to help these athletes? Like that journalism to marketing, they're like cousins, I guess, like PR and marketing. They're cousins. They're not the same thing, but they do a lot of the same things. How easy or difficult? How easy and difficult was that transition from journalism to marketing?
Yeah, I think calling them cousins is actually a great way to kind of explain the relationship. For me, it comes down to a couple things. One, and it's just like we said before we kicked off to record this call, but the value of your network, right? So as a reporter, when I was at the Indianapolis Star, I worked with a lot of people who worked in Indy Car, right down the road, and the Indianapolis 500 is a huge event culturally and regionally in Indy. So we spent the entire month of May as a sports team at the Star working at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So you spend 30 days out there, you get to know people. So what ended up happening was they had an opening for a social specialist, social manager, I don't know, like an entry-level guy to run social accounts for IndyCar. And my name came up because it was the same work I was doing at IndyCar, or I'm sorry, at Indy Star. Very confusing.
They rhyme.
From Indy Star to IndyCar. Yeah, right. But going from the paper to the racing league, better way to say it. It was just through an organic connection, and it's the same thing. Like you don't realize that you're networking actively when you show up to work and shake hands with people and get to know them and treat them well, but that can lead to opportunity. That transition was pretty seamless, honestly, because the way that I was covering the sport was pretty one-to-one. Like you said, it was very much like a cousin kind of relationship where it was pretty familiar. When I was at Indy Car, I started a program that was very much in its infancy and being made up as I went. But it was, how do we create content that we can send directly to the drivers to help them build their brands? A lot of the drivers at the time had support from someone. It might have just been a photographer, videographer who they had hired. It might have been a full production company, but they had someone helping them tell their stories. But the league wanted to figure out, how can we fit into that as well? So one example could be, how can we either help get like onboard camera footage to them so they can post it? Because I mean, you've probably seen like the growth of F1 in the last few years, but the content from inside the cars is remarkable. You can really feel
my
the speed,
favorite part.
the intensity.
If they just left it like that the whole time, I would watch way more races. Like that's about it.
Yeah, I think it's technically probably hard to broadcast, right? Because you're moving so much data from a car going 200 miles an hour or whatever.
It's pretty
so
cool.
I think like we would always lose the feed from the Indy cars. Like they would go through a certain part of the track and it would blur out. And we're like, oh, there goes our great content. So I know that's tough, but anyways. The point I was getting to is, how do we take the things that the league owns and get it into the hands of the drivers, or set them up to publish it, help them tell a different part of their story? So I was doing that work. Again, I was a one-man social team and wore a lot of hats in that role. I'm sure a lot of listeners of your show and probably guests can relate to that, where it's like, you're the social team, now go do the 1,000 things that
all
represents.
the social work.
Right. So I didn't have a ton of time to like really think about how I help driver X do their personal branding, but it was a part of my work, and that set me up to write a, I think, convincing cover letter for the NHL, which was kicking off its player publishing program in a more like focused way, where they were going to hire someone, which ended up being me, a creative, to create things to send to hockey players, with the hope being, right, that the more fans every player can reach on social, the more fans the game has. So in a very broad way, it's like raising brand awareness for the Shield, for the league. And that role is where I really started to get into the more like, how do I actually market an athlete at a different level than I was as a reporter, where it's like, how do I go tell a specific story? So it kind of set me up to transition across those two roles to where I am now. And we'll talk more about this, but my role is made up every day. I'm called head of marketing, but I won't repeat it verbatim, but you said something earlier about roles sometimes not matching up with the work that you do. And
you can repeat it if you want. It's fine.
I don't know. Titles are bullshit, something like that. I can't remember. But I get to wear a lot of different hats here. But really, the NHL role set me up to learn a lot, see how the corporate world works, in some ways see how it doesn't work well, and bring that into this role at MarketPryce, where it's a startup and we're really making it up as we go, which is exciting and challenging. And I'm sure you've experienced that as well. But yeah, set me up for a pretty natural kind of arc to get to where I am now.
I love it. Well, I'm a very big advocate for MarketPryce. I try and introduce as many athletes and as many agencies, whomever, that I think can make even just some sort of idea of the platform. I try and send as many people there as possible. So one of your biggest advocates, Jason set me up with an account back in the day. I played around with it a little bit. It's not for me. I'm not an athlete. I'm not doing anything. So maybe one day. No, but we'll see. I think one question I'm really interested about, right? So I understand the IndyCar part, right? Like, so you have this, you own this footage, you own this, that, and the third. Here, send it to the drivers. You guys can publish it. What is it that the NHL owned Was it highlights? What exactly did they own, and how were you able to take what the NHL owned to start telling that story from the athlete's perspective? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah,
What's
that
that
evolved.
content? Sorry.
That evolved a lot over. I was there for 2.5 years, and we spent honestly probably 6 months to a year trying to figure out exactly what that was and how the league fit into it. I think the puzzle piece that is the league, and then all of its clubs around that, figuring out how they fit together to support players was sometimes a challenge as well, because different clubs have different priorities and they have different amounts of bandwidth. They have different levels of protection where they might not want you talking to their players and sending them content. So it was a lot of work to figure out like what is the thing we can do. But I'll give you a couple of specific examples where I was creating things that really helped an athlete share a specific part of who they were, and that was in some ways on the ice and sometimes off. But one is a big campaign for the league every year is the All-Star Game, right? How do we help players support that event, drive attention for it before the event, post about it afterwards, and everything in between? And one of my favorite projects ever at the NHL was working with Trevor Zegras to create what we ended up create what fans called a low light, but it was a video that he posted asking fans to vote for him. What was in the video were him trying audacious things on the ice that failed, like 6 times. It's him falling down. It's him trying a reverse, like a lacrosse goal and different things where the goalie just stopped the puck, and it was like not interesting at all. But what made Trevor Zegras really cool is he often accomplished these things. So he posts this in a self-deprecating way. Fans know like he's like that, like he's actually really good at hockey, so he can lean into this and have some fun. And that ended up, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it really moved the needle in a meaningful way where fans were voting for Trevor Zegras in a like ironic and fun way. Mm-hmm. And all of that, right, is supporting like who Trevor is. He's a super fun, laid back California dude who plays for the Anaheim Ducks now, and he like fits the whole profile of who we want like a young hockey player to be at the league. And we gave him content that leaned into that. So that's one example where it's like we have a league initiative. How does a player participate in that? And how does it also align with who the player is? Another example that was a little more heartfelt was working with a player named Josh Morrissey, who was in Winnipeg at the time, and he lost his father to cancer. And during the Hockey Fights Cancer Month, like teams would have different games and different events to support the overall league initiative. We worked with Josh to help tell the story of a custom suit that he had made that had like a really cool purple lining that went with the whole campaign, right? And then he auctioned it off to raise money that went to an org that he was obviously very passionate about. And that was a case where it's like, again, this is a league campaign, month-long thing where we try to get players posting about it, whether they have such a strong personal connection to it or not. So it's like, what do we set them up to post? What stories can they tell? Josh's was obviously like a very authentic and meaningful fit. So that was an example of like where we can really do that. Like he's talking about this league campaign, but also telling a story that means a lot to him, and all of his fans are going to appreciate. And maybe it'll get some more eyes too on this fundraiser, right? To actually like move the needle and raise money for something that meant a lot to him as well. So that's awesome. A couple examples where it's like the league, maybe it owns something, maybe it just has a campaign that it wants players to fit into. And instead of a player just posting like a boring on-ice pick, we could do more elevated storytelling that checked boxes on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I appreciate those examples because it gives so much credence to, as you said, like that's where you were able to start learning and understanding the power, not just the power, but how to tell those stories in a powerful way, right? Obviously, yeah. Josh's example is extremely powerful. You know, shout out to him for doing everything and you guys for figuring that out. And then Trevor's obviously is just kind of, as you said, it's a little self-deprecating, tongue-in-cheek. We're having fun with it. I mean, that's like, I just watched the All-Star Game and it boggles my mind. Hockey players are the funniest people. Like, it's, in my opinion, baseball players are 1A, hockey players are 1B. Like, and for whatever reason, they couldn't get someone with a microphone on everyone was so boring, and it was so frustrating watching. It's like, these guys are hilarious. Why are you holding them back? And from that standpoint, it is what it is. The NHL, thankfully to you, has gotten better at marketing their stars, but they got a little while until they're really there.
They do. The league is up against a lot of challenges too, so don't hold it against them fully. Like there's this hockey culture that's really weird, and you compare that to like how comfortable stars in the NBA, for example, are like being stars. And like no one in the NHL is comfortable with that. And it's because of how locker rooms treat stars and how they chirp each other. Like when Trevor Zegras was really posting on social, we know for a fact that his teammates were chirping him for it afterwards, right? So it's like something that you have to have the right kind of attitude to be okay with your teammates giving you hell about a post, knowing that you're trying to build something special, whether it's for you or in partnership with the league or another company, whatever. But it's tough. Like if you're a young player and you don't have the moxie and skill that Trevor Zegras has, you don't want to raise awareness. You don't want too many eyes on you for when you make that first rookie mistake, because as you know too, fans can be quick to flip on you.
Yes.
So in the locker room, how fans treat you, it's
That's
just
really
like
interesting.
It's a lot of challenges that are out of everyone's control. Like it's a culture that has lived in the sport for a long time,
and that's
hard to tear down.
That's just frustrating, right? Because like I want to hear more. I want to see more. Like why are you guys like, it's insular? I understand. And yeah, I've never been in a hockey locker room. I've never played a hockey game. I'm terrible at skating, so like I can't comment on any of that stuff. But just from a fan's perspective, like, as we've been talking about this whole time, like I want to see more. I want to hear more. I want to know what Connor McDavid does and how he does it. And Austin Matthews, like, these guys are hilarious. Show me more personality. The fact that I now understand, and I appreciate you for the information, that it's more of an internal thing that really tampers that down. I mean, dude, I'm not going to sit here and tell them what they have to do, but do you guys understand how much money you're missing out on? Like, it's just a simple fact from that. Like, if one of these guys could be like, yeah, I posted this and I have this partnership now and I'm making X more dollars than you because I'm showing my personality. That's it. I'm not asking you to go above and beyond. Just show your personality and we'll all love it and the sport will grow for it. But hey, nothing I can comment on. That's really great information, Dakota. I appreciate it. But honestly, it just frustrates me more now that I think about it. So
yeah, I mean, I had a lot of frustrating days in that role. A lot of really fun days too, just tied even to the content pieces we talked about. But yeah, it was an uphill battle in a lot of ways. And honestly, I look at my work now and it's like, we'll get into the specific examples, but the athletes who I work with are almost universally like, let's go. How can we work together? Let's go find opportunity. I'll do whatever it takes. And with hockey players, I think one point that you touched on briefly is like, they're making $7 million a year. Like they don't need a partnership that's going to pay them even $100,000. Like that's popcorn money, for them, right? So I think that's part of it too. Like there are different levels of athletes, different level of salary, and it's like, unless I'm LeBron and I can get like real life-changing money in the equity deal that I have with Beats or whatever, like, they're not as motivated to go out and find the smaller brand deals. So that's part of it too. There's some indifference in hockey that was a challenge for players specifically. Yeah. And like you said, MarketPryce isn't for me. Like I record my show and I go home. I'm not an athlete. Like I don't discredit any athlete for feeling that way. If you don't want to mess with this stuff, you shouldn't feel like pressure to, right? So not even a balance.
Yeah, and I get it. And not even on the brand partnership side. Yeah, maybe the $100,000 isn't worth it, quote unquote, to you. Whatever, that's fine. But the fact that some of that money could go to a charity, right? You could be working with a charity, as you laid out with Josh's case prior. I mean, I'm sure he didn't get anyone chirping at him for that, right? But like the fact that it's more of a fan thing, right? It's more like grow the game. I want more people to watch hockey. Like I watch it now that football is essentially over. This is when I start watching hockey, so it's about halfway, a little more than halfway through the season.
Do you tune in often? Are you a big hockey guy?
Now that it's on ESPN Plus too, it's always like my second TV, because I really don't care about basketball till the playoffs. It doesn't matter to me, so it's always on my second TV pretty much. Okay. But now, like, I'm sitting down. I've watched like the last 3 Rangers games because there's nothing to do during the week now. Cool. That there's
so you're a Rangers
football
guy then?
My wife's a Rangers fan, and I want her to be happy.
Cool.
How does that sound?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Cool.
But like, I'll watch. I don't care who's on. Like, as long as it's 2 good teams, or Connor McDavid's on, I'll watch the Oilers. Austin Matthews, I mean, he's hurt, but I'll watch the Leafs. Like, I love watching the Canadian teams lose, right? Like, it's always half the battle too. So it is fun. But that's interesting information. But we don't need to talk about the NHL. You spent some time there. I think what you did is really, really cool. And again, it led to what you're doing now, which is most important. Is you are the recently promoted head of marketing. Shout out to Jason for realizing he had a good thing and he did not want to let it go. Love Jason. Always appreciate having him on. He'll probably be on here in a couple months. But MarketPryce, we've kind of beat around the bush. If anyone's listening to this show, they're probably listening to this episode, because I only have so many people listening, and I appreciate every single one of them. Sincerely do. But what exactly is MarketPryce? Give us the 50,000 foot view for people tuning in for the first time.
I keep waiting, Michael, for Jason to like drop in on this episode.
That would be that would have been such a cool idea. Damn. Oh, I'll blame it on you for having to reschedule. We had that idea set, and then you had to reschedule, and unfortunately, he couldn't make it today.
That's my bad. What MarketPryce is a two-sided marketplace for brands and athletes, and we help spark partnerships between those two people. So the NIL space is really important to MarketPryce, as Jason, I'm sure, has talked to you at length about. He started the company before NIL was legalized. Then the bill passes, and it's like, wow, we have a huge opportunity. That was long before I joined the company, but that's when Jason said, okay, we're going to go try to work with some student athletes, see how this goes.
I'm going to stop you right there. Long before, NIL's only been around for like 18 months now. So
that's true. And
long before.
Every month feels like a lifetime at a startup. But you're right. Like, it's still so new. Everyone's figuring out how it works, as are we as a company. Like, our focus now is finding ways to support student athletes, to partner with universities to support everything from one team in their athletic department to the entire athletic department. I think a couple highlights we'll talk about later in the bit here are, like, we went out in partnership with Arizona University, University of Arizona.
U of A, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, we got to edit that out.
I'm not going to edit that out.
Okay, so, I know.
Sorry.
It's in there.
Yeah, it's in there. No one noticed. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I know. Cool. We'll skip that. But we go to Tucson, and
nice.
We worked with two of their teams. So softball team, women's basketball team, and we went out and onboarded them to the platform, talked to them about making the most of their NIL, and we also surprised them with NIL deals on the first day of our partnership, which is a content piece that you had seen previously, Michael, where we had athletes unveil a cooler full of product. We told them they were all going to get paid to post about it, and that was, I think, what's exciting for me is it's like making NIL tangible. That's a big part of what we're trying to do right now, because so many athletes look at NIL and they're like, I don't know where to start. I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if it's real. Everyone talks about it. Is it actually, though? So we can show up and say, here's product, go post about it. You'll get paid through our platform, and we make it feel very tangible. So I think at a practical level, that's what we're doing for athletes right now. And my part in what MarketPryce is changes, I think, pretty with some regularity, but we're having a lot of fun. So
whichever way the wind blows that day. No, and I think it's really important. Again, I talk about it all the time. I've introduced many people to you guys, the platform, whomever. I email Jason every couple months. Who should I start introducing people to now? Because I used to just send them to him. He's like, hey, could you? I'm kind of busy, so now I get to send them to you, Dakota. But I think one thing that's just so interesting about the platform and the way Jason thought of it and why he's been on this show so many times, and I think it's such an awesome platform, is kind of reversing the model, right? Rather than, oh, you guys helping the athletes find a brand and the brand paying money to be on the platform, and then you take 20%. It's, the athlete pays a subscription fee, or the agency pays a subscription fee. They can talk to as many brands as they want. They can, if there's open, requests for proposals out there, you can go and check them out. You can just reach out to the brands directly, and the subscription essentially just allows you to message and talk to these parties back and forth, and then you guys are kind of out of it from there, which I think is such an awesome way of thinking about it, because this then allows athletes to go and do whatever they want. They don't have to worry. They're not trying to then go behind your back. It's like, oh, well, we already created this relationship, so let's not use this platform anymore because they're getting 20%. I don't want to pay them. It's just such an awesome way of thinking about it. The one thing that has changed since the first time I interviewed Jason, obviously, is NIL. So the second thing that's changed is I'm noticing more and more, and please give me, your take on kind of what I'm seeing from a third party's view, is you guys are getting more into making the deals and making these, giving these athletes the opportunities, i.e. the Arizona deal with Goat Fuel and the Dr. Squatch deal, which we're talking about in a little bit. And I feel like that's kind of where you come in a little bit more, is helping, rather than just letting athletes go do their thing. You guys are really starting to find what's happening on your platform, create these stories, and even creating what's happening on the platform yourself to then be able to go and spread the great word of MarketPryce. Give me a little bit more of an understanding exactly kind of what that's looking like, and when you guys started to dive a little bit more headfirst and saying, hey, wait, like, we can let all this stuff happen, but if we start to facilitate it, only good things will come.
Yeah, I think a big part of our platform will always be that, where it's the hands-off, almost autopilot. You have brands, you have athletes, put them in a marketplace together and let the magic happen.
Have fun, guys.
Then there's a smaller chunk of the company, and I'll tell you my POV on it as head of marketing is I started thinking, like, how do I tell athletes what this platform is and get them to understand and, again, really make it tangible? I think if you say we are a company that helps you with NIL, that can still be tough because a lot of athletes don't even know where to start. So I started thinking about it in this way. If I can create something that moves the needle for a brand, it also moves the needle for MarketPryce, because athletes can see that we're doing that work, we're in the trenches, and we're bringing cool deals to life that, again, are real and you can see them. So what does that turn into? I think that turns into doing work like we did with Dr. Squatch, where we had this, we had a moment really, like in the middle of college football season. Devin Miller is a tight end at Marshall. He catches the game-winning touchdown pass in South Bend, upsets, I think, number 8 at the time, Notre Dame.
Yeah, they were very highly overrated, but we're good.
That's for a different podcast.
Oh, you're Indiana. Yeah, maybe you have. Maybe you have.
I have a lot of Notre Dame friends who were very upset that day. But Notre Dame fandom, or lack thereof aside, we had kind of sparked a relationship with Devin a little bit before the game. That was through other people on the team. But what I was trying to do is sit back and say, okay, X athlete has a huge moment. How do we help them capitalize? And we've done that in a few different places, but Devin's was one that just made a ton of sense. So we DM'd him and said, hey, what's your dream brand? Like, if you could work with anyone this week, who would it be? And he rattled off 2 or 3. And when we saw Dr. Squatch on the list, we're like, whoa, this is a really fun brand that might actually entertain doing something from a random tight end at Marshall on social media. So we go back and forth in DM. To Devin's credit, he was down to do whatever. Like I told you before, there are a lot of athletes who I get to work with who are like, let's go, let's try this, let's get weird and see if we can make something happen. He's that guy. So he responded in like a matter of minutes. We had video from him to cut into this really cheeky kind of almost like an ad, where we atted Dr. Squatch and said, hey, Marshall fans, Devin's friends and family, anyone else who cares about this, tag Dr. Squatch in the comments. We got enough comments that Dr. Squatch reached back out and said, we'd love to work with this kid. Let's do it. Wait.
So you guys did not have the relationship with Dr. Squatch at the time?
It was not existing.
That is awesome.
It did not exist before this. So it was a cold social post. Yeah. And it was a ton of fun. And to Dr. Squatch's credit, that's part of what makes them a really cool brand. They saw this post, and I'll tell you the big win on the MarketPryce half is, like, I love Devin to death. We got to meet him in person, which we'll get to in a few minutes here, but he's a great athlete. I loved helping him. What was cool in the MarketPryce half, though, is Squatch ended up working with like 3 to 5 other athletes too. So we had this huge brand that worked with like a wrestler from Kent State and a mixed martial arts fighter. Again, athletes who don't typically have like top tier brands knocking on their door. So that was a really cool part of that whole story. So yes, we did the cold outreach on social, and it worked. Dr. Squatch came and worked with us. What happened for the rest of the story with Devin, though? He posts a video that ends up running as an ad for Squatch for like 30 days, whatever. We follow back up afterwards, and we're like, hey, 2 things. His team loved this. They call him Dr. Squatch in the locker room. Devin told us this incredible story about his coach walking in the room, and this is a pretty serious meeting. So they upset Notre Dame. Then the next week, Marshall lost to Bowling Green, and the vibes changed very quickly. It went from this really high locker room to a very low locker room. So this is a couple weeks down the road after Notre Dame. Their coach walks in the room, and he's like kind of snarling. He's upset. And he looks around and he says, I've told you all before, if you go do something outside these 4 walls, we need to know about it. So Devin now is sitting in the room like, oh,
what did I do?
What is going on? Because his ad had just published. So coach is really leaning into this, kind of serving up some false emotion in the room. And then he calls over to the video guy and says, all right, hit it. And when he plays it, it's Devin's ad with Dr. Squatch. So now the whole locker room is going crazy. Coach is like, awesome. Hey, when can I get my bar of soap? And it was kind of this little like cool, I think like morale boost, congratulatory moment, but they moved on from it after that. But we had that story. Another cool thing that Devin did is he did a Squatch celebration after a touchdown later in the season. So he's like celebrating, like washing himself, and a lineman is like giving him like a shower with his hands. That's hard to get on camera, but anyways, you get the idea. So he's like so fired up about this. The whole team loves it. We shared all of that with the brand, Dr. Squatch, and they're like, cool, let's do something with the team. So we sent out like, I don't even know how much, a very heavy box of soap and deodorant that we ended up staging in front of the room at their National Signing Day event. And Devin was able to kind of pay it forward, and he shared a ton of product with all 23 signees who were in the room. And they all got paid just for being there as like an appearance, essentially. And then Devin and one other athlete will do another kind of advertisement video based on this event. So we took this whole like Dr. Squatch thing that happened organically with Devin and turned it into another really cool in-person, kind of a different angle on what a partnership between a brand and an athlete could look like. So seeing that all the way through with Devin was a ton of fun. And it all happened without a proper relationship on the front end.
Yeah, that makes all this cooler. I just, not going to lie, I just kind of assumed you guys had the relationship and things came together, but it's way cooler when you understand you guys kind of did some guerrilla marketing, for lack of a better term, to get in front of this brand. You said, hey, like, I can't promise that you're going to work with this brand, but, like, we kind of understand what they do. They like weird shit. Like, let's do something weird and see if we can get in front of them. That not only led to Devin making money, his teammates making money, but some other, as you said, kind of quote-unquote random athletes, around getting the opportunity to work with this brand through MarketPryce, I assume, because you guys were able to go out about that. So that is an absolute head of marketing. So I really do. I think your title is not bullshit, Dakota. I think what you do is very smart. Back. Yes, it all comes back around. I think that's awesome, man. And I think it's so important that people understand, like there's a lot of camps out there that believe NIL is just for the top NBA or basketball and football players, right? And that's where a significant chunk of the money is going. Let's not lie. What do you think these collectives do? No offense, but they're not worried about the sixth person on the volleyball team. But if you have any sort of moment, if you have anything, right? Like Marshall is not Alabama. Sorry. Don't mean to be mean, but I love the MAC. I watch all the MAC games. They're some of my favorites. It's just important for people to understand that, like, athletes specifically and anyone that represents them, just because you might be a little bit smaller, if you could have any pop, anything that goes just a little, like, just catches enough attention, you could take that and turn it to money. Maybe not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but you're turning it into money for yourself, your team, other athletes that are then able to just understand this opportunity, and the brands that you work with, right? Dr. Squatch being this brand, smart enough to understand, like, wait, we can really capture some attention here because this coach loved it. And now we're at this National Signing Day. Now, is Marshall's National Signing Day as big as Alabama's? No, but that means the dollars aren't as big, but there's still an opportunity around it. So you turn this one simple thing of, hey, do you want to work with this brand? I think it'd be cool, to now look what's happening. He's probably going to be a brand ambassador for life, and that's the best part about NIL, baby. It's like, just because once he's done playing football, maybe he's just an ambassador for Dr. Squatch, right? Maybe he goes around to schools and talks to schools about Dr. There's so many things that this player and this opportunity has come that it's so much cooler than just a couple extra dollars. It is legitimately long-term shit that can come from this stuff. So kudos to you guys and the team, man. That's awesome.
Thank you for that. Let's take a quick break for our paid partner.
Hey.
Dr. Squatch.
Spearmint basil. Ooh.
All natural, made from natural oils, no harsh chemicals. Give Dr. Squatch a try.
Look at that. And now Dr. Squatch, no free ads. No free ads, but I'm going to take this one.
Okay,
no.
good. I was going to say
you're going to send me some.
Right, that's through the platform. Just go apply.
Right. Yes.
We'll get that set up. What I'm actually really excited that you said, though, and why I want to plug Dr. Squatch and get them seeing the show, is we are like trying to pitch Devin to be a lifetime ambassador. I don't know if that'll work, but we really want to.
I love it.
By the end of the week here, we spent 2.5 days on campus pulling this thing off, and we got to go meet a lot of coaches and meet some of the athletes. But like their head of player development was like, how do we get this in the locker room? Like, I want a case of Dr. Squatch throughout the season. So we're going to take that pitch back to them eventually. The other cool thing about Devin is he's been using the product for a long time. It's like, it's not an NIL deal that doesn't have some substance behind it. He loves the product, and by the end of the week, we joked that like he's become a proper spokesman where he knows all the lines, no harsh chemicals, naturally sustainably packaged. The list goes on.
You do too. Look at that. I think that's
it's
really
because
important.
I spent a couple of days with Devin. I am now an ambassador, and you will be soon too.
That's fine, man.
So,
I love.
I will say it does smell so good. Like
spearmint basil. That sounds like a kind of a mojito or something. That sounds wonderful.
It is. It's very fresh. I keep this in my office. It's like a candle. Like, it just sits here and it just smells good all the time. I don't even have to use it. I just sit here and look at it.
That's fantastic. But I think there's something really important that we'll leave on this note here is you have, like, as an athlete, like, you shouldn't just be saying, I want to work with this brand. Like, I've worn Jordans before. Okay, but like, are you already an ambassador to this brand? Are you already like, no, I only buy Dr. Squatch? Like, Duke Cannon? Who the hell is Duke Cannon? Get out of my house. Like, no, I buy Dr. Squatch because I love Dr. Squatch. I want to work with Dr. Squatch because I legitimately love this brand, right? And it was told to me when I was working with athletes. I spoke with a gentleman from Chipotle. I can't remember his name. Awesome dude, super helpful. He was like, yeah, like, are your athletes talking about Chipotle? Like, are they having that conversation already with their fans? Because we have people that are paying attention. If I'm just getting randomly pitched, hey, this person wants to work with Chipotle, it's like, well, then I'm going to look and see if they ever have talked about Chipotle. And if they haven't, why am I giving you money? You don't actually care about the brand enough to talk about it without getting paid. Why would I pay you to? Because that's not very authentic. I think that's one of the most underrated things that hopefully high school kids, college kids, even professional athletes are really starting to pay attention to. Professional athletes is a little bit different, but college specifically, you're not getting paid yet. You have to find the opportunity to get paid. They're not going to pay you, most likely, unless you really do care. Or you're not going to find a really cool deal like this unless you really care. And I think that's something that's totally underrated. I assume you talk to athletes about that, you or at least Michael, who's also been on the show. I assume you guys talk to athletes about this all the time, because if you're not, these brands they listen. They have social listening tools to see who's talking about their brands. It's not rocket science, guys.
Yeah, no, we've talked at length about that. Finding authenticity sets you up for a stronger partnership from the jump. And the other thing that's interesting about what you said, and can sometimes be a challenge, is you go to athletes and you say, what brands do you want to work with? Every athlete says Nike, Lululemon, Under Armour. It's like, cool, everyone wants to work with them, but are you actually going to? I don't know. It's probably a long shot. So then it's like, what we'll find is sometimes we'll drill down, and it's like, what do you actually use every day? What products mean a lot to you as an athlete? What products help you as a person separate from your athletics or your training? And it's like, once you get to that level, then you can find the actual organic fit that makes sense to create content around or go pitch formally. But yeah, it can be tough to, again, peel those layers back, because everyone sees the Jordan deal or whatever it might be, and that's where their mind goes first. So
yeah, not everyone's blowing out their shoes like Zion Williamson, so that's it's not that easy to get that deal. But man, this has been awesome, Dakota. You have been fantastic. Quickest 45 minutes of your life, I assume, but this has been great, man. Just learning about you, what you've done, how your kind of career has evolved over time into what you're doing now, and how you're helping so many athletes. It's just tell their stories a little bit more and get a couple bucks for doing it. I think that's the best thing in the world. So I appreciate what you do, man.
Michael, thanks for the time. It's great to be on the show after watching so many episodes, editing down sound bites from Jason.
Thank you for doing that, by the way.
Oh, yeah, of course. Always happy to. Just let me know if you need help. If you happen to have any guests who maybe have a small gaffe when they're talking, if you need that cut out, hit me up.
Oh, no, I've never had
free.
that. No,
that's a free service I offer, but no, I really appreciate the time. It was great to meet you. So
no, man, time's the only thing we don't get more of. I appreciate you for yours. I appreciate the audience for theirs and listening to us. But other than that, man, oh well, tell us, where can we? That's usually my ending line. I already did it, but where can we find more about you, MarketPryce? Give us all the links and everything. I'll throw everything in the show notes for everyone if they want to click on it.
Yeah, you can follow me. I'm at Dakota Crawford _ on all the channels, I think, and follow MarketPryce as well. I would love anyone who watches the show and is passionate about this stuff. Connect with me in either or both places. Would love to talk shop, talk about NIL, how you're doing it, maybe how we could do it together. Love to share ideas. So
can't hurt.
Would love to connect and take any feedback on how MarketPryce is doing things too. So
I love it. Well, I'll keep being an ambassador of the brand. Probably have a couple more people from your company on here over the next few months, weeks. Who knows? But Dakota, sincerely, man, this has been awesome. I appreciate you and what you're doing. This is great.
Likewise. Thanks.
All right. See you, everybody. Bye.